I appreciate the chance to be with you. Appreciate the chance to really take such a daunting challenge to be able to address the four-way test. I think it is a great challenge, but those are some big words: truth, fair, goodwill, better friendships, beneficial. And so to start with truth, it's a rather difficult way to approach it. I looked it up, and to my knowledge, there's only one question that Jesus never answers. He's standing before Pilate, and Pilate says, "What is truth?" And Jesus doesn't say anything. So for that to be a silent point for Jesus and then to stand up and talk about it, I thought I better approach it a little bit more tangible way. So out at the Red Top Mountain Campground is this map for the Zoom people. So there's a map. So Carrie and I went out to go hiking. Now a map is great. So if it's a factual map, if it's an actual map, then technically it's true. It's a true representation of where you are. So you're holding it in your hands. Now the problem with whether or not it's true or not is depending on how you orient it. Because if the map is turned wrong, you can go hiking in all sorts of different directions that look perfect on the map. And for my wife and I, it's a tough call, because 30 years ago, when we were driving in Michigan, just barely married, she was holding the map, and I was looking at her and I said, "No, baby, just because it is the top doesn't mean it's right. You've got to turn upside down and know whether to go right or left." And so she got flustered with me. The windows were down, and literally, the map flew out the window. And thus began 30 years of marriage. Is it true? If you think about a globe, the top of the globe, we put the United States up top, we put North America on the top, we put South America on the bottom. But from space, there is no top and bottom. We hold top as being true, bottom as being true, but there really isn't top and bottom relative to a ball or a globe in space. When you think about a map, it's not really true, because throughout the history of humanity, our maps have all been wrong. We held them as true. We tried to navigate by them, but they were wrong. They developed over time. They got more and more accurate. There are ancient maps that had China at the top of the page. And the reason China was at the top of the page is because if you want to know how to orient the map, you turn toward the sun. If you turn toward the sun, then you knew that's the way China was. That oriented your map. And so then after time, we came up with the compass, and we realized that truth had to do with direction. Truth had to do with north. So truth was about the direction that you're headed. Today, I deal professionally in the realm of belief. What do you believe about God? What do you believe about people? What do you believe about sin? What do you believe about salvation? What do you believe about life after death? But the word belief is showing up into so many areas now. What do you believe about a president? What do you believe about the government? What do you believe about the future of the country? What do you believe about COVID? What do you believe about math? What do you believe about college football? Belief, belief, belief. So who's right? Well, right has to do with truth. But I want to just present the idea that truth is less something we know, and it's more about an orientation. That's why for navigation purposes, it's always called true north. Because you know that relative to where you are, you can always tell your direction based on truth. So if you want to think about truth relative to is it true, it's not about is it accurate, because accuracy changes. Accuracy depends on how you've got your map oriented. And we all have maps about how we think life is going to go. And so we orient these maps based on where we think we are. But I can tell you that standing out at the Red Top Mountain Campground, we tried to orient toward the lake, but there's several parts of the lake on there. And a map is only as good as your orientation. So you have to have that standard point of which you are shooting for and which you are going for. So right alignment is what I want to encourage you to think about truth. So truth is alignment, truth is north. As Americans, we say, in the beginning of who we are as Americans is simply this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, to be obvious, that all people are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So as Rotarians, you're going to be true. Then I think you should align yourselves with that key truth. If we're going to be faithful as Americans, It says right there, that's the key truth. These truths to be self-evident. It's obvious. This is why we're forming together. This is what we're about. That all people are created and equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. True north. So when this debate comes about which lives matter, well, right here, it's all lives matter. Each person matters. That's why we're here, because we are here about building up the potential of the individual. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So let me take you a little back to how some different people talked about truth. Plato said truth was about perfection. He said that for a chair, there is a perfect chair. For a horse, there is a perfect horse. And that all these things that we see are just shadows of the great perfection. Now, he had a student named Aristotle who was hoping for tenure. He was hoping to take over for Plato when Plato retired, but he didn't get the job. So very mad about his frustration, about his career not going the way he thought it would, Aristotle goes out in the wood. And Aristotle touches a tree and he goes, you know what? There is no perfect tree. A tree is a tree. A tree is alive. You can't use perfection when it comes to life, but you can use potential. And so he used the word telos, which is potential, meaning that in each acorn is the potential of an oak tree. Telos, potential. And so for us to look at what truth is, we have to look at potential. To look at, is it fair? It means that each person has the opportunity to develop into that full potential that he or she has. I gotta tell you, Rotary did a lot for me. Some 30 years ago, when I was in my 20s, I got sent to Taiwan on a group study exchange. There were 5 of us in a Rotarian, young guys, and we went and we changed towns every 3 days. And every 3 days we went to a new Rotary and they allowed us to speak in English. Didn't understand any of it, but they were very great. But we stayed in a different home. And for me, I learned to meet people and to have curiosity about culture. To not think that I had a monopoly on what was right, but instead I had a right orientation to engage others. And I learned that from Rotary. Because you change towns every 3 days, you have to be open to different ways of life and different perspectives. Having been across the world, I will tell you, Europe is a lot like here, but different. But Asia and Taiwan, very different. And that orientation that I got from Rotary allowed me to be able to deal with people with curiosity. There was a fellow named John the Baptist that told you how bad everybody was. He was about perfection. But Jesus said, no, I see who you can be. You got God in you. There's potential. So being fair means that we work toward a place where everybody has the opportunity to reach that potential. That's that true north. And if you don't know if you're meeting it or not, you just look based on that initial truth that's self-evident. That all people have potential. And we have to work toward that potential. And that's what fairness looks like. There is a passage coming up for us at church this Sunday, and it's a very strange story where a landowner goes out into the marketplace where workers get together. And those workers, he hires some of them at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, noon, 3 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock. And at the end of the day, the guys that only work for an hour come up and he pays them a day's wage. The next group, a day's wage. Now the guys in the morning were thinking, wow, if they get that much, we're going to get a lot. But at the end of the day, he pays them all the same. Now economically, it doesn't seem fair, but if you think about fairness in terms of connection, you understand. A day's wage is what you've got to do so that you can eat for that day. And so those guys who are waiting around the marketplace on the end of the day have really the harder job because they are seeking something so they don't have to go home empty. They don't want to go home to their families and say, we have no bread today because I didn't get anywhere. So for him to give them what they needed for the day was fair in the mind of the landowner. It was also good economic. If everybody in the town doesn't eat, then it doesn't work. I grew up in the textile mill in Anderson, South Carolina. And I learned quickly that as it went for the mill, so it went for the neighborhood, but as it went for the neighborhood, so it went for the mill. Fairness means we have a broad sense of what works that affects everybody. It's not just one individual. It's not me compared to you. It's about how it's going to affect the whole. Because each kid, each person needs to meet their potential. A little kid in a second grade class, they were talking about what they want to be when they grow up. Some said fireman, some said doctor, some said lawyer, whatever they said. And so she came around and one kid has an answer. She said, Billy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I just want to be possible. He said, possible? He said, yeah, everybody tells me, Billy, you're impossible. I want to grow up and be possible. If you think about the potential in individuals, I did the wedding for my nephew, who is now about 30, and he's been dating this girl for 8 years. When he was little, and the way I told him and I addressed him, and I told the couple, I said, you know, I have to tell you that when Drew was little, well, let me just put it in perspective. He was kind of like Van Gogh. Now, when Van Gogh was alive, everybody said, Vinny, your paintings have too much color. Nobody got it. Only sold one painting while he was alive. Now they're worth $100 million, $70 million a piece. But they didn't get it. I said, you know, Thomas Edison burned down a barn because he wanted to see what happened. They said, Thomas, you will never have a bright idea. They didn't get it. Even William Shakespeare, he became very popular, but when he was little, the teacher said, Willie, you can't talk like that, nobody will understand. They didn't get it. And when my nephew was little, you could hold him and he would take his forehead and he would crash it, smash into you. Again and again. We didn't get it. This girl who dated, she got it. She understood it. She saw the potential in a way that perhaps his family didn't. And so on behalf of the family, I was proud to say, Haley, now you got it. So she got it. But going forward, they have to get each other because, again, it's about meeting the potential. And that's what beneficial looks like. You know what beneficial is when you see it. Your goodwill means that you want every person to reach their potential. Beneficial is you can measure it. Being in a mainline church is tough. And so Bill and I have been working together for 4 years along with the same group of people trying to figure out how do we navigate what was strange waters before COVID, but now is even more challenging. And so what we did was we decided, you know what, near us is a Title I elementary school. And so better than just looking at our numbers every week like good Presbyterians and treating the financials, we decided to start measuring our success based on the academic success of the kids in the Title I school nearest us. We worked to make sure every kid had enough to eat. When COVID happened, there were kids in that school that went to their teacher that said, where will I get food? So we tried to make sure there was enough food in the community. And so we have tied our numbers to theirs, and so we watched how they do on the Georgia testing. And just a year ago, they were number 3 in the county for improvement. And so we took great pride in that. We have a couple that said, hey, we want to do something for the school, and so for their 60th wedding anniversary, they bought every kid in the school a book, and we were able to, buy in bulk. And they went over and gave them out. They had so much fun they've done the last 2 years. Because we're tied to that potential. And that's how we measure. Beneficial, you can know. And it builds goodwill. When you're on the compass point together and you know what north looks like, you're traveling on a journey. Having done a lot of youth trips, I can tell you the worst thing you can do is take a van of youth on a mission trip and say, where do you want to stop and eat? Now, you make it easy when you pull off an exit and you pull up and you say, okay, you can go to this restaurant or this restaurant, you can't cross the street. They've got a choice, everybody's happy. But if you ask a group of church folks on a mission trip, where do you want? What do you like? You won't ever get it. Because you forgot about where you were going. You forgot about your direction. You forgot about your purpose. But if you have that compass, if you know what you're called to do, if you're about the potential of the people that you have the power to affect, then life will go so much better for you. Because really, if you got true north and you know what you're about, then you'll have the potential to be fair. The world will become fair. It can't stay the same. Goodwill and friendship comes when people are working together. Having been a part of church for a long time, I'll tell you that church with a mission will die for each other, and without one, they'll kill each other. My daughter is at Stanford University, and she applied to be the membership chair, and they liked her so much they made her president. But they didn't realize that being president of a sorority meant you had to listen to everything everybody was upset about. And what she did was she said, you know what, we're going to try and set a greater goal. And they made philanthropy their greatest focus. That became their true north. So this sorority, 4 years old, just did recruitment. And out of 250 girls looking to pledge to a sorority, 150 picked theirs as number one, really just because they had a true north. They had philanthropy. And isn't that what you're great at? You don't have to know what the right answers are on all this crazy stuff. But if you know what you're out to accomplish, you'll get along well. There'll be goodwill, friendships will build, beneficial will be measurable. It'll be tangible, you'll be able to taste it. Then you'll know that that's right, because that's in alignment on that journey. It's just simply true north, true direction, and everything else will fall into place. Maps come and go, but north is always there. So don't lose your focus. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for the difference you made in my life and the life of so many others, historically and today. Thanks a lot.